when I decided to climb to more than 4,000 meters above sea level to pray. I thought the hardest part would be the altitude. I thought the thin air, the cold wind, the pressure on my chest would be my biggest challenge, but I was wrong. The true challenge, the one that nearly broke me, was the silence of the mountains. The stillness that confronts a man in a place where the world feels impossibly far away. The journey started long before I reached the peak. Hours of climbing through sharp winds, unstable rocks, and the slow, suffocating grip of thin air forced me to face my limits before I was ready. Every step felt like pushing through invisible resistance. My lungs burned, my head tightened with every meter gained, and yet something in me felt drawn higher, almost pulled, like the mountain itself wasn't just a place, but an altar calling me upward. By the time I reached the plateau at the top, the world below looked unreal, tiny, distant, irrelevant. There was no noise, no movement, no civilization. Only wind, space, and a vast silence, so ancient it felt alive. And in that silence, something inside me began to tremble. Not from fear, but from an overwhelming awareness that I was standing in a place where God had spoken to men for thousands of years. The prophets, the wanderers, the broken, the chosen all, found God in mountains because mountains strip away everything that pretends to matter. As I dropped to my knees, the cold cut through my clothes, but my spirit felt strangely warm. I closed my eyes and whispered a simple prayer. Lord, meet me here. I didn't expect an answer, but the stillness around me felt like a response, and that was the moment I realized I wasn't alone on that mountain. 10 minutes into prayer, something strange began to happen. My breathing, already difficult from the altitude, suddenly shifted into a slow, rhythmic pattern I wasn't consciously choosing. It was as though something deeper inside me had taken over, guiding my breath, steadying it against the impossible thinness of the air. My heartbeat grew loud, echoing inside my skull like a slow drum. My fingers tingled. The cold around me seemed to fade, replaced by a rising heat spreading across my chest. I opened my eyes, and for a moment, the world didn't look normal. The sky looked impossibly close, as if I could stretch my hand and tear open the blue to see eternity beneath it. The clouds weren't drifting, they were pulsing, moving in a rhythm that matched my breath. I blinked, thinking it was altitude sickness, but the sensation didn't stop. It deepened, colors sharpened, sounds faded, thoughts narrowed until only one remained. Listen, I didn't know what I was listening for, but the wind suddenly shifted, wrapping around me like a whisper. It wasn't a voice, not a human one, but a pressure, a weight, a presence, a knowing. My mind, fogged by lack of oxygen moments before, suddenly felt strikingly alert. It was as if the mountain itself was amplifying something spiritual inside me. I felt exposed, yet safe, overwhelmed, yet held. And then came the impression, clear, direct, impossible to ignore. You climb mountains on the outside to face the mountain inside. Those words hit me with the force of a blow. I had climbed seeking a moment with God. But the mountain was revealing something about myself, about the weight I still carried. The unanswered questions I kept avoiding. The battles inside me I had never fully confronted. The altitude wasn't my enemy. It was the tool God was using to strip me down until nothing was left but truth. Around the 30-minute mark, the wind stopped completely. The air became impossibly still, the kind of stillness you only experience right before a storm, or right before something supernatural breaks through the veil. My ears rang from the silence. My vision blurred for a moment, then sharpened again. I felt a pressure on my chest that wasn't physical, like something was being pushed out of me. Fear, doubt, insecurity, memories I didn't want to relive. My mind began to race, not chaotically, but with precision, as if each thought was being pulled out one by one into the open. Every failure I had carried, every regret I tucked away, every wound I pretended didn't hurt, they rose like shadows around me. I felt the weight of old mistakes, relationships that broke me, sins I thought were forgiven but never fully released. My heart pounded from the inside like a fist hitting a door. The altitude was revealing what my spirit had been hiding. And then, in the middle of my chest, I felt it, a release, like something snapped free from deep inside me. My breath caught, my eyes opened wide. Tears poured without permission. The presence I felt earlier didn't vanish. It grew stronger, enveloping me like a blanket of warmth in the cold mountain air. And then came the whisper, not audible, not spoken, but imprinted across my spirit like lightning burning across the sky. You're not carrying this mountain anymore. I exhaled a breath that felt like it had been trapped inside me for years. My shoulders dropped, my jaw loosened, everything in me softened. It felt like deliverance. Not dramatic, not loud, quiet, precise, surgical. The kind of deliverance that doesn't remove you from the mountain, but removes the mountain from inside you. I stayed still, trembling, letting the presence wash through the cracks of my soul until peace, deep, heavy, anchoring peace, settled into every part of me. The kind of peace you don't find in comfort, the kind that finds you in the climb. When I finally stood up, the world below looked different, not because it changed, but because I had. The sky wasn't just blue, it felt like a ceiling God himself had painted. The wind returned, but it wasn't sharp anymore. It carried the weight of something gentle, almost like a blessing passing through the air. My legs felt weak, but my spirit felt stronger than it had in years. I took one last look across the horizon, staring at mountains layered like waves frozen in time, and I realized something I had never understood before. Sometimes God brings you to high places not to show you the view, but to teach you how small your problems really are. From that altitude, fears shrink, wounds lose their power, worries lose their voice, perspective becomes revelation. And as I began my descent, each step felt like a return to the world, yet not as the same man who climbed it. I knew I had left something behind at the top, something heavy, something poisonous, something God never intended me to carry. I breathed the thin air slowly, savoring each inhale, each exhale, knowing I would never forget what I experienced on that mountain. And before I reached the bottom, a final impression settled into my spirit, quiet, unmistakable, and true. If you seek me in the heights, I will reveal what's hidden in the depths. That day, I learned that altitude doesn't just change your body, it changes your spirit. It breaks you open, it strips you clean, it brings you face to face with yourself and with God in a way nothing else can. And if you let Him, He will meet you on the mountain. Even if the mountain is inside you.